Well, guys, back when I was 18 years old, I got caught in an avalanche. 19, sorry, got caught in an avalanche at a Lake Louise mountain resort. I was with some really good homies, some of my best friends at the time, and I actually should just paint the picture a little bit. Lake Louise, just outside of Banff, super similar to Colorado snowpack. It's Rocky Mountain. It has basal facets, just the way it is. So it's like every year, it's a hazard that we need to control. Hopefully, you can see my mouse here. So what we doing, like a lot of ski resorts, you pound a few laps inbounds on a powder day, and then you kind of work your way out of bounds. So you can see my cursor here on the left-hand side. I hope you guys can see that. There's this little feature here. I'm going to show you a photo of it later. We skied this, popped around, and skied down this little chute, came around, and then we skied this thing called Vortex. Just to kind of paint a picture of where this incident happened. So just to kind of like paint the picture here, I was my first year ski patrol. I had taken my first professional avalanche course. So obviously I had it all figured out because I'd taken one professional course. I was with a good friend, pro skier, brothers, and I don't have Harley on there. Another homie, Harley, and then Chris Rubens was a pro skier. So just painting the picture that like a lot of people were coming with experience with this, which is totally a red flag. What we skied is like this big open bowl. So inbounds is just right. You can actually see a bit of a fence here. We skied up. It's called West Bowl, one at a time. Great terrain management here. Obviously, just taking this avalanche course, so it's like we were on point in terms of avalanche terrain movement. So we skied this, went back through to the other side, and then we decided to go on top of this line called Dog's Leg. Dropped in here, one at a time. Really good visual. Skied the whole thing. So as you can imagine, we're like, nothing happened, so we started to get a really good feeling about our decision making. So after 2 runs of good decision making and nothing happening, we decided to. Well, this actually kind of paints a picture of what the day was like. This photo was from a different day. It was actually kind of in and out. It'd be like bluebird and then totally cloudy. So this is me dropping into Dog's Leg there. So after we finish that line, we pop up to this other peak and we're looking over to this line, and none of us had skied it. It's called Vortex. Just like, I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, this is so rad. I'm going to totally ski this thing. I've been wanting to ski it forever. It's kind of relating it to Alaska. And I know it's not as rad as Alaska, but it kind of felt like it because we're skiing with pro skiers. But what's interesting with this is just like, we were all just drawn to this. We all knew we were going there for the day, and we just sort of built up into it. What had happened is we had decided to do it. This is us on top, super cloudy. We weren't talking about the avalanche conditions. This is what I'm trying to get at. So we were on top of this thing, and the biggest thing that we were deciding is like, we're not going to ski this run unless we have a really good visual top to bottom. Because it's like, as you can imagine here, we knew that like, okay, if we ski this thing, you're kind of all in it. There's no safe zone. There's no escape route. If you ski this thing and something slides, you're in it. The only way out is zipping out the bottom with speed. So obviously we weren't going to ski it if we couldn't see anything. So here we are at the top. And I put this picture on you guys because it's like, I remember looking at my ski tips, and I remember thinking that like, I think I should probably have a better feeling about this, but I just didn't know enough to have a feeling about it. Like it was like, I knew that we had to wait for it to clear, but I just didn't have like a gut. I was like, I didn't have a gut feeling on this. And the reason, not to get too far ahead, the reason why is like, we just didn't build into our decision on this. It was just sort of like, I know I'm a good enough skier to ski the slope. So that's kind of the big factor. I know I can ski that. So if it's good, we're going to ski it. So I feel good about it. So here we are. There's 4 of us on top of this slope. And this is my little red dot here. We had 2 guys watching really close, and then someone ready skis on to respond if something were to happen, because it was kind of a hard visual before we dropped in. So here I am, dropping in. You guys have no idea. Things did clear up, so I should say that. Like, we're standing on top, things cleared up, decided to drop in because we could see top to bottom. We're like, okay, safe zone, everything happens, is going to be out the bottom. That's our way out. So I drop in, I'm like, literally think I'm in the front cover of Powder Magazine. I'm slashing these big turns, and I'm not thinking about the slope at all. I'm just thinking about how rad I am at skiing this slope. I get down to about halfway. You can see it kind of like this little pinch here, actually, like stayed on top of this ridge. I knew I was making good terrain choices. I was so dialed on it, and I ended up, slowing down here, and I dove into this little gully. But meanwhile, what had happened as I was skiing, triggered a slide behind me, classic Rocky Mountains, to ground. I didn't even look over my shoulder. I just started skiing, and you guys, like, I got into this gully and I just got hit from behind. It was like getting hit from a bus. And I just blew off my skis, and it was like, I remember like my first avalanche course. It's like a recreational avalanche course when I was 16. My instructor told me, like, when you get caught in a slide, what you want to do is put your feet in front of you and do this like little back crawl sort of thing. But when I got hit by this, it was not like that at all. It was like I was in a washing machine. I was like getting maytagged. And I'll never forget, I had my pole straps on, and it really hindered my chance of swimming. And it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. It was no control. I was just eating it down the mountain. And I'm thankful the new Skeptor poles actually have a pole release, because like after this day, I never wore pole straps. Just got to make sure I add that piece into here. But luckily, you guys, got caught in this thing, went for a ride. I ended up on top of the debris. This is like a size 3 avalanche, took off down the valley to the right. I stood up, looked up, and I'm looking at my homies. I wish I had the linked radios at this point, because I'm just like giving like the okay. I'm like, I'm alive. I'm like stumbling around. So lucky, I felt like heck that I managed to stay on top. What's interesting is these guys were pro skiers, and it took them about 20 minutes to come down to find me. So they knew I was okay. They slowed down things a little bit. So as you can imagine, if this is a huge slope, look at how big this hang fire is. So they basically skied rock to rock, got the bed surface, which was rock. As you guys know, Rocky Mountains just have these things right to ground. And they just scraped their skis 20 minutes down to make sure I was okay. Lost my skis. Had my poles. Thank goodness I had these pole straps on. Just kidding. And we were able to ski out of there, which still took like half the day. Even just close to the resort, took forever to get out of it. But there's a lot to learn from this. And the first thing that you see in the news is like when something bad happens. You see like skiers were out and it was considerable hazard and someone was caught. Well, on this day, let's think about this, it's the weakness that we need to focus on here. So if it's like on this day, we weren't making a decision because, the danger rating was moderate. Like that's the incorrect way. Like you can't say that someone was caught in an avalanche because the danger rating was moderate. I'm going to dive into like the analogy here. So the danger rating is just such a small piece of the whole thing. Like think of it like a boxer going into a ring. So if your coach is coming in to tell you about your opponent before you go into that ring, you're getting like warmed up. And you're like, all right, coach, what's happening? Who am I up against? And he's just like, all right, Marty, it's, the guy you're up against, he's got considerable hazard. So you go to the ring, okay, considerable. You know what? I've dealt with considerable before. You go in and then you just get like your ass handed to you because it's like, you don't know any of the characteristics. All you know is that it's considerable hazard. So if you think about it, what you need to know about your opponent are the characteristics. So in this instance, yes, digging a pit could have helped. The danger rating doesn't really help, but a pit is not like, you can't dig a pit on this. You're kind of all in it. You know that the basal facets are rotten and then there's a slab on top of that. Yeah, you can probe around, but it's like, what you really need to know is the characteristics throughout the day. And this is what's so rad. Back then, the avalanche bulletins were like, so-so, like they gave the danger rating, that sort of thing. But on this day, this is just taken from, not the actual day because this is a few years later, but like on that given day, it would say certain things like caution with basal facets on these types of slopes, the thick to thin. And then like in hindsight, you look back and it's like, oh, those characteristics. Yeah, that was not the day for it. We should have waited for the spring to have a good melt freeze cycle, or, not expecting avalanches to go full path with light triggers, that sort of thing. We're going to get into that a little bit. So needless to say, you guys, 19, probably the best thing for me is just getting my butt kicked on that one. And I came to the mountains with a whole lot of respect. But the biggest thing I learned is like, I don't know enough.